Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Remarkable Retail Podcast recorded live in Barcelona at Shop Talk Europe. Our guest is the talented, dynamic Mary Ghahremani, CEO of Bambuser. Together we delve into the future of global retail and commerce, focusing on the video platforms and merchandising that is revolutionizing the shopping experience for millions worldwide and here in North America. Mary also shares her leadership insights and lessons learned about balancing day-to-day operations with innovation, the challenges of starting and growing a tech company, and the importance of building a talented team and securing funding. This episode is brought to you by Bambuser, our promotional partner for Shop Talk in Las Vegas and Barcelona. Mary, welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you today. Sunny Barcelona.
Beautiful Barcelona. We're here at Shop Talk Europe, and we're here in the Bambuser podcasting studio. So you must feel at home. We're high above the
high above the
in
clouds.
the sky. It's a
Yes.
beautiful. You've helped us with a beautiful podcast studio. We've had lots of great conversations. So thank you, first of all, for that, which is great. Let's talk about you first. Who are you and what do you do for a living, and how did you become you?
Oh, that's a great question. So, as I said, my name is Maryam, called Mary. And who am I? I'm a very curious person. Mm-hmm. Always, since very early days, love products and retail. So, been always very fascinated by brands and cool stuff. And got into media. Early days where we were selling print magazines, if you remember that was huge.
I've heard of those, yeah.
And I remember, it was a big thing. And I remember I was quite young, and we were, our CEO was just like, I worked for Schibsted, which is the Northern European biggest, largest media house. And he came out, and this is a moment I really remember in my career. And he was just like, print is dying, online is, we need to have an online presence. And I remember because 90% of the revenue was print ads,
right.
And he was like, we need to have a website and we need to start, selling banners. So I think that shift was interesting to be a part of a big movement within a big media house, US wise, like a New York Times, now it's, and we started very early, very, very early. And that shift into it's media, but it's still technology, because we were one of the first, introducing a website with content and native ads and all of that, going in. And I think I've been a part of the shift, going from blog to Instagram to TikTok, the jumps every fifth or 10th year into new channels and so on. And we know that media is not dead, but it looks very different today, right? And I think that really brought my interest for tech, combining media tech and I would say retail.
Yep.
I work with many of the big retailers in creating, working with influencers and creating native, content. And I think all of that somehow led me into where I'm today, working with, as a CEO of Bambuser, really building out a video commerce platform, which in the end of the day is really about how to engage with your clients in a digital presence.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Tehran, Iran. It's a funny story. Every time I travel there, where do you come from? And I'm like, Sweden. They're like, no, you're not blonde and blue eyes. I'm like, no, I'm not.
It's a bit of a tell, I guess.
Yeah, it
is.
So we moved to Sweden during, the revolution and the war. So I came when I was 6. And been living in Sweden actually my whole life. Travel a lot, but it's hard to find a great country like Sweden. So it's you always come back to where it's an amazing country to live. I'm not going to do a lot of advertising for Sweden.
This podcast brought to you by the Swedish Tourist Board.
Well, I think you are the advertiser.
Yeah,
for
that's
Sweden,
good.
actually.
Yeah, no,
Very accomplished.
That's in a nutshell. I'm a mother of 2. Very, very fun to see the small kids growing up with. I'm joking they get an iPhone when they're born, and they touch everywhere we go. If there is a screen, they will touch it, and they would say they believe internet is everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Well, it seems that way sometimes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your business. Now, at one level, I think the idea of video commerce sounds somewhat self-explanatory, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Could you just describe a bit about what you do, how it works, and what your clients get from working with Bambuser?
Of course. So it's quite simple. It's video, and then you add video to commerce, and then you get video commerce. So it's
Easy.
Slow down, you're going too fast.
But I think when you say it sounds so spectacular and future. But I think it's quite easy. I think it's a behavior that's been around for years, and I think this also goes back to like video has been around. YouTube, like whatever. Like people are so used to video, right? Netflix, like. We consume video all the time.
And shopping on TV. QVCs of the world. It's all about
I
shopping.
wouldn't actually go, like QVC is actually a customer of Bambuser, and they're doing phenomenal. But I would say that video commerce is a bit of a different behavior, right? I think going back to actually us ourselves as consumers, we when we want to buy something, you would normally, you would be out on social channels. You would look at YouTube, you would go to Instagram, you would go to, myself, I'm not on TikTok, but like the younger generation, they would go there. And in the end of the day, you would end up on the website to buy, right? Because you don't do any checkout today on any social media. You go to the website to buy. And I think what video commerce in its essence is like, how do you create a landing page that resonates with where you have been? TikTok, Instagram, like the social, it's interactive, it's shoppable, it's a very immersive experience, and then you land on something that have looked the same for 25 years, which is a static web page with a lot of text and some pictures. And I think what we're trying to do and what we're trying to create is really like, how do you take that very natural behavior of browsing, being entertained, and how do you adapt that on a very static web page? So that's the core of what we do. We add interactive and shoppable video into the heart of your e-com. It doesn't stop there, because when we started with this in late 2019, beginning of 2020, we were very focused on like the e-com, the website. As we know, we live in a multi-channel world where we as consumers, there are many touch bases and many channels to focus on, right? There is not one shop, like I go to the website and then I buy. Normally a pattern would be like you've been on 20 different channels and then you end up buying in store. So I would say it's very complicated today, but as its essence, I would say if I would summarize video commerce is really like, how do you create the same experience as walking into a store, getting help from a store associate? That's our digital clienteling tool. Or how do I recreate an event or a fashion show, something I'm doing that's social where many people can attend? How can I open up that and make it, visible for the many that are not based in that city or whatever it is?
And has the omni-channel, multi-channel piece of it been the biggest evolution? Because as you mentioned, the company's been around for more than 15 years, right, at this point. So a lot, I imagine, has evolved during that time. Is the multi-channel piece, the multiple touch point piece, been the biggest shift in the last couple of years?
I would say so. Bambuser has been around since 2007. I mean, the first 11 years of the company, they were focused on mobile live video. So they were selling to media companies. And I always describe Bambuser in 3 phases. So the founders, they still work. One of them actually is still here, and he's young, so he's been here since very early days. And they launched the company because they wanted to like create a YouTube but for live, right? So you could, and it became quite big. It was very successful. I think they never managed to monetize, so that was the thing. They started very late, and then the second way was they pivoted into media. So when I started, Bambuser was selling to media companies, leveraging the mobile live video app to stream news. So I would say the third wave and the pivot that I was a part of doing was in 2019 when we pivoted into retail and omnichannel. So I would say it's quite new journey. I mean, we're 4 years old. We started, we opened up the platform in January 2020. So when you're 4 years, you can walk and you can talk, but you're still like, you're not a grown up. You're still a child. So I think for us, it's 4 years into the omnichannel, omnichannel journey, the retail journey. And we're really doing something. We're tapping into a market and a channel that haven't existed. And I think really grew thanks to COVID. Everything got shut down. And, they were looking for immersive technology. How do we find something that can replicate the in-person, meeting or the experience we can give them in store?
Sure.
So I think for us, the amazing growth journey we've had is much due to COVID, because they were forced to look for emerging technologies that could solve the problem for them. Yeah. So four interesting, really high growth years of working with. And I think the fascinating thing is normally as a SaaS, startup, which we were like back in 2018, we really managed to say pivot, and then we started with enterprise because they were so quick into like, we need to find something.
Right.
Normally you would start with the long tail and then move upwards, right? But the funny thing with us was just like we started with the Estee Lauder companies and then we moved on.
If you continue your analogy about being a kid, you're like a prodigy, though, right? You
Yes.
fast start. Let's widen the aperture a little bit and talk about the global commerce video industry in general. If you were American, I might ask you what inning we're in the total evolution. You talked about the accelerant impact of COVID.
Yes.
That probably took you or the industry.
The whole industry, I would say.
The industry forward. So, there was a lot of buzz about a lot of things happening, like in the China market, and it's coming, and maybe that was a little oversold or undersold. Yes. What's your perspective? Where do you think you are, and where do you think the industry is in its evolution?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, as I said, 4 years old. We have some of our clients who have been with us for 4 years now and renewing. And I think looking at the market as a whole, I think China is a different game, different behavior. They live in super apps. Looking outside of China, even if I look to Korea or Southeast Asia, of course, they live in the apps, but they have a very different behavior to China. So I would say I would actually exclude China as a behavior. And I think there have been a lot of comparison, like in China, this is 20% of the e-com market. Right, this will happen in the West. And
this coming here, look at it there. But that doesn't always translate literally and figuratively, right?
It doesn't translate, to be very honest. And we do work with I can't mention them, we're under strict NDAs, but some of the biggest brands that are very present and actually are doing this in China, right? I would say what they do there looks very differently to how they use Bambuser, right? So in China, it's really about discount codes and just driving enormous amounts of GMV, right? It's not so much about education or really trying to create that relationship with the client. So it's very much driven by like discounts and fast.
Would you describe it as more transactional?
Much more. It's 100% transactional, I would say. If I look to the Western world, transaction in the end of the day, we can't lie. Like sales is sales.
Of course.
Even if nobody is like, it's just like you need to sell stuff.
You still got to put the numbers on the board, right?
100%. So it's just like, this is an amazing technology. We don't sell. But I would say it's really what we see here. It's an extension of the brand, an extension of the like communication, of building the relationship. We talk very much about, lifetime value. How do you create that touch point? Also Gen Z? How do we have so many consumers and brands that are like, our customer group is aging. We need to reach the younger generation. They're not looking at our products. How do we reach them? I had a talk today at Shop Talk. I had one huge company coming and he was just like, we need to reach the younger generation. How do we do that? We need to be where they are, right? Sure. So I think that where the market is. So today we have some of our clients where we are 10% of their e-com sales.
Wow.
And we're talking then, millions of dollars, big numbers, right? Sure. But those customers, it's a handful, right? It's not like hundreds or thousands of our clients.
Sure.
So I think we're reaching a point where we're becoming incremental revenue for our clients. Those have also invested in Bambuser for 4 years. They've done a lot of shows. Right. They are very committed. I think it's a long-term play. I always say, like, you can't, if you're going to invest in video commerce, it can't be like a campaign or a fashion show and then, you see the numbers. And normally the numbers are amazing. But then they drop it, right? So it's about building like... It's like Instagram. You don't start a Instagram account and then you do 2 posts and then you're like, I'm fine.
Right. Takes a while.
Yeah. So I would say where the market is, and we're live in all markets except China. That's China and Russia is the only countries we don't stream into, right? And we do have offices around the world. It's different behaviors. Southeast Asia, EMEA, Americas. In the end of the day, I would say that there is one common thing, which is like, how do we engage? How would you convert? How do we keep the customers? And how do we build a relationship with the customer that is authentic online? Because online is very anonymous, right? And then the maturity is different on the different markets. But once again, I think we're maybe it's still early days. We're 4 years into our journey. It's still very early days, but
Can
I
you
think
describe the same for the industry? Kind of
very
early
much
innings?
early, yes. But then the numbers we see and the sales we drive and the conversion and the NPS, amazing. I mean, in our digital clienteling tool, we just signed Currys, UK's biggest consumer electronic chain, and they have thousands of calls every day. So it's becoming normal. But then if you ask your friends, they're like, you're trying to explain digital consultation. They're like, I've never talked to someone on video together. It's like I chat, right? So it's like the new generation of chats, right?
Lots of growth.
And it is change. So it's going to take time. And I think, when we become 20-30% of someone's e-com sales, no matter if it's through the social commerce or digital clienteling tool, then we're talking, something that will,
Yeah.
So maybe shift gears a little bit. I'd be curious, since you've been at this for a while, driving a fast growth company, how do you balance the day-to-day operations, putting the numbers on the board, serving clients, with also working on that next new thing, driving that innovation pipeline? Any advice for our listeners on how to achieve a good balance there?
I think balance is hard. I have to be honest with you. No balance is a good. No, I think for me, it goes back to purpose. I think purpose-driven companies, and I think my personality is very purpose-driven. Like, I love ikigai. You're here for a reason, and you're here to do something, right? So for me, it goes back to purpose. Why am I? Because a lot of the times it's very hectical. I'm also a woman and a mother of two. I gave birth to my child 2018. I joined Bambuser at the same time. It's much tougher because you have to breastfeed a baby at the same time you're scaling a company.
We've had lots of great discussions with female founders, and it's different, right? There's just different dynamics.
It's different dynamics, and I would say it's more challenging because of the just biologic, it's different. And then, of course, it's when you scale, it's a lot of fun, but it also creates tensions in the company, right?
Sure.
And we had very fast scale because of a lot of, factors, but I would say I go back to purpose. And I think I balance that really well when I feel like, you have to serve so many people. You have to serve the board, the shareholders, your people that you want to onboard to the company, existing employees. You have many different stakeholders that you need to somehow work with and make sure that they're happy and aligned, right? But that goes back to purpose. I think if you have a strong purpose with your company, I always say to someone, if you solve an existing problem, I think there are too many scale-up startups. It's hard to understand their pitch. Like they need,
they're in search of a problem.
Yeah, they're searching. They're not actually solving anything. And I think the amazing thing with Bambuser, and it goes back to the whole team, we're actually solving an actual problem. We're really helping brands and retailers to really give that amazing store experience, which how do I translate that experience into a very digital, boring, static, world, and also be able to back that up with KPI. So my best, advice would be authentic, be yourself. I think it's always easier, and you get so much more respect from everyone if you're just authentic and be yourself. Balance is hard. It's not going to be easy, but I think if you have a strong purpose, then I think it's just going to be so much more fun, both for you as a CEO.
It helps you sort out the priorities.
And you can prioritize, and then But I would very honestly, you need to sacrifice a lot of stuff if you're going to build something that's going to be huge, which I want to do, and stay around for 100 more years, and not die, which a lot of scale ups do. You have to be committed, and you have to do big sacrifices. But to do that, you have to have a very strong purpose.
Mm-hmm. So my one quick question, just follow up on, as you scale the company, as you drive for growth, a couple of comments on how do you foster a culture of innovation? Because to do what you need to do, you also need to have people working and thinking about innovation at the speed, as Steve often describes, of disruption. So how do you form that culture at the same time you're trying to get that fast driving and that growth?
I think it comes down to talent, and I know we talk a lot about talent, but I always say if you have a good product, you actually don't need to sell it. people will find your product. If you have a great company as us, like I didn't need to look for investors; they found me. Do you understand me? Like it goes back to fostering a culture.
Attraction, not promotion.
Yes. How do you attract instead of trying to like?
I see.
And I think for me that has been very like essential since day one. Like, how do I build a talented team? Because if I build a talented team, it will somehow take care of itself. And if I don't, and it's sad somehow, but everyone is not talented. It's like talent is talent, and it's hard to find. But when you find it, it will also like great people want to work with great people. You don't want to work with someone that's late to work, doesn't do their homework, So I always say so that has been key since day one. Like, how do we work with talent, and how do we grow with talent? And when you do that, it's just like a great micro, like it just takes care of itself. I think that's the number one. And the second thing is that we have the amazing ability to work with some of the greatest brands and companies on earth. I think LVMH is a great example. So we won the Innovation Award in 2021. We got awarded by Monsieur Arnault, which is huge. We got the prize from him. Like he chose us as.
They got a few vendors to choose from, right?
It's an amazing just the award itself, but I think the award is like separate. So I think we have been fostered into the world of luxury through them. So there is code of conduct. There are like the language. You don't say customer, you say clients. There is so much. And I love they have 3 words that describes the group and the group is huge, 75 maisons across, wine and spirits to hotels to, luxury goods. And it's excellence, creativity, and innovation. And it's those 3 words that somehow creates LVMH, the world's largest luxury conglomerate in the world. So how do we innovate? We stay close to those type of clients because the budgets they have for innovation is huge. And we don't have those budgets or resources. But as we're a main partner, we work with 12 out of 75 maisons. We're super close with the group. Gives us an enormous insights in what is important, what is innovation. So it's talent, and then work with the most innovative, best companies in the world because you will get innovation for free. I can give you one good example. So we've integrated a lot of vendors through them. So we had our one-to-one solution that was used by Beauty Tech, the beauty maisons, and they were like, we would like to integrate virtual try-ons, and we work with Perfect Corp, who is our chosen vendor. So that is also so innovated by integrating Perfect Corp into the one-to-one. So you can actually try on the lipstick and the mascara or whatever, which of course enhances the customer experience.
Fantastic.
We would never have found them or maybe, done the collaboration or the integration without them. So that's, it's just such an amazing, opportunity to get to work with the best.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Congratulations on that and all your success. Maybe before we let you go, and you've touched on a few things already, but we have a fair number of founders, early stage companies that listen to the podcast. And I wonder whether you have any kind of advice to your younger self of things that you've learned in your journey scaling up and growing a business to people that are maybe 3, 5, 7 years behind where you are.
I think a couple of things that I've touched on that I do believe is essential. It's to be yourself, be authentic. A lot of the early days, but continued, is raising capital. And I always go back to there is one thing driving a company, and there is a very different skill of raising capital. Yes. It's 2 different skills, to be very honest. Very few people are good at both. And if you want to create something big, you need to have capital, right? Especially within tech. I'm not judging any other, And I think if you're authentic and if you have a purpose, if you solve a problem, the amazing, investors, they're going to find you. And when they found you, if you're authentic yourself, you do have a purpose, you're going to get the investment. I raised $120 million within 18 months in a company that nobody wanted to touch when I started because they weren't successful, right? But we rebranded. We were a small team of 6 people. I started to add a lot of talent. We started to redo what's the purpose of the company? We've been here for 11 years. what have we done? And what do we want to leave with? So I would say my advice would be, once again, if you're authentic, if you're doing something that solves a real problem, if you have a strong purpose. I love purpose-driven companies. Apple is a great example. Patagonia is a great example. They will be around forever, and everybody will, and they touch you. Like, you can't be a technology company. Like, you have to touch people, right? It's hard with technology. Sometimes it's, back-end and boring. Our technology is not. It's front-end and very, it's
not as
something
experienced.
Yeah. So I think that is really important. And then in the end of the day, you're gonna have so many more losses than wins. But it's just about embracing also and learn. My chairman, Joel, I love him. He's a great mentor and he inspires me a lot. And he always asks me, like, Mary, did you learn? So we don't do the same mistake 20 times. We maybe do it 3. Did you learn? And then he asked me the second question: are you getting a little bit better every day? Are you getting, And I think it's the baby steps. I think, and I will summarize with my favorite thing that I go back to. A lot of founders overestimate what they can do in a year, but they really underestimate what they can do in 10 years. That's a good one. So be focused on the long-term journey. Many people are like very short-term, right? And nobody wants to invest in that. So be long-term, be yourself, have a higher purpose, get talent on board early. It's gonna be great.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the words of wisdom, and congratulations on all the success so far, but it sounds like there's a lot.
We have a lot
to come, so we look forward to that. But thanks for joining Michael and myself on the Remarkable Retail Podcast. Have a great rest of the show, and we'll see what's next for Bambuser.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.
Thanks for tuning in. New episodes of Season 8, presented by Salonis, will air every Tuesday. Be sure and tell your friends and colleagues in the retail industry all about us. And if you liked our episode, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts.
I'm Steve Dennis, author of Remarkable Retail, How to Win and Keep Customers in the Age of Disruption, and my brand new book, Leaders Leap, Transforming Your Company at the Speed of Disruption, which is available in hardcover, ebook, and Audible formats just about anywhere you prefer to buy your books. You can learn more about me, my consulting, and keynote speaking at stephenpdennis.com.
And I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker, and media entrepreneur. You can learn more about me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.